views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello everyone, welcome to Open BxRx Remote, brought to you from my living workspace, Chari Executive Suite. Rhina Valentin, your host, Café con Leche, every Friday. Here's what's coming up in today's show. Leading things off, we'll shed light on the maternal mortality rate among women of color in the United States when we speak to Birth from the Earth founder and president, Nubia Earth Martin. After that, we'll hear about a new zine book curated by Kasinator Visuals entitled With Space Between Us that showcases the COVID-19 pandemic throughout the eyes of various artists. And then we'll catch up with the Salsa Project founder, Brandon Espinosa, about his recent trip to Puerto Rico and his collaboration with the Bronx Brewery. Later on in the show, Bobby C brings us an up-to-date with the latest headlines in the world of sports. And lastly, this week's Open Artist Spotlight features New York City Poet Sydney Valerio, who will close us out with one of her pieces entitled Castañuelas. You don't want to miss. So sit back y prepárate. All this and more is headed your way. Now we are officially open. Welcome to Open. I'm Rhina Valentin, your host, Café con Leche, for the next hour, encouraging you to get social with us online during these social distancing times. Tweet us and follow us on Instagram at BronxNet TV and like us on Facebook at Open BronxNet Television. And of course, while you're there, you can follow me on Twitter, FB, Instagram, Insta Stories, and LinkedIn at Rhina Valentin. So, historically, Black women have the highest maternal mortality rate, and according to the CDC, Black women are 5 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related issues than white women. And this continues to be an issue, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. Joining us to tell us more on this issue, please welcome Birth from the Earth founder and president, Midwife Nubia Earth Martin. Hello and welcome.
Hello, greetings. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, this is a very, very crucial topic to talk about, especially because the pandemic only seems to amplify the disparities that were already in place. So we saw overnight people who were already maybe getting substandard care were getting even less attention to their immediate needs during pregnancy and childbirth, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is unfortunate, and it's lovely that we're even going to engage in this conversation, because I recall when I was pregnant, I wanted a doula, and I always had this feeling, or I always felt as if though having a doula and a midwife was a luxury, right? And so I understand, if we could just explain to everybody what the difference between a doula and midwife is, and also how the insurance companies even assist with this service, because personally I feel that it's something that each woman, every woman should be offered as a service. So let's first share with our viewers the difference between a doula and a midwife.
Sure, yeah. So a doula is somebody who's going to provide support during the pregnancy, the birth, and sometimes immediately postpartum in terms of education, sometimes advocacy, comfort measures. And when you have a doula present, it's shown to reduce the risk of having a C-section birth by up to 50%. And it's also shown to improve the overall birth experience and lower a mother's desire for pain medication, which is also important, especially when we're talking about natural or physiologic birth. But the doula does not have a medical background. So this is more of a birth companion, emotional, mental, physical, sometimes even spiritual support. Whereas a midwife is actually a trained medical provider. The difference being, with an OBGYN and a midwife is the midwifery model of care is more client-led care. So in New York, you have to either pursue the CNM, Certified Nurse Midwife, or CM, Certified Midwife track. And the difference is the undergrad level. So as a certified nurse midwife, you would have an undergrad degree in nursing. And as a CM, you would have an undergrad degree in any other discipline. But the graduate level midwifery school education is the same for both CMs and CNMs. So I, for example, have an undergrad degree in sociology and a master's degree in midwifery. So I am under the CM credential. And we are able to provide not only prenatal care and attend to birth and provide postpartum care and immediate newborn care, but we also provide well woman care. We provide preconception health, and a lot of education goes into that and the time that we spend with families.
So as a midwife, you said you're able to attend the birth. Are you able to have home births because you're a midwife? You're able to facilitate a birth as well.
Yes. So
whereas a doula is not.
A doula is not. So she might be present at a home birth, but she would be the support person with the provider being a home birth midwife. And for home birth, the person who is planning to birth at home needs to be experiencing a low risk, healthy pregnancy. If she's having a high risk pregnancy, the best place for her is most likely going to be in the hospital. But some hospitals do have midwives, so you can get collaborative care with an OBGYN and a midwife, even if you risk out from a home birth. But home birth is actually the safer option if you are having a low risk pregnancy than hospital birth. And many people don't know that. But about 85%.
Especially during these times. I mean, during these times, this is definitely a time, if you're pregnant, to consider just having a home birth. So let's talk about the services of being a midwife and how it pertains to these times, right? Because although we've shortened that curve and we've flattened it, we should say, the reality is that this disease still exists within our cipher, and there was a time where even being in the hospital for whatever reason was quite frightening. And so I would imagine there's still some validity to that as well, especially bringing in a new life.
That's right. So at the height of the pandemic, I think that was when many people were beginning to explore home birth who maybe hadn't thought about home birth as an option before. And that was for a number of reasons. Just the uncertainty of going into a hospital in the middle of a pandemic and possibly contracting COVID. The idea that at the beginning, you couldn't have a doula or maybe even your significant other be present for the birth. And then when we were still figuring out how COVID was transmitted, there was separation mother and baby. So those are, really critical things that would make an expectant family rethink their choices, especially being separated from your newborn or not having any other family support there. Thankfully, the governor did deem fit to say that a doula is not an extra person, but the doula is actually an essential part of that birth care team, and they were able to make sure that you can safely still have a doula support you in a hospital setting. But we saw a huge uptick in people looking into home birth. And, the responsible thing that we had to do was, of course, get their prenatal records to make sure that they're having a healthy pregnancy. There are no underlying risk factors to ensure that they were a good candidate for home birth. And we had some amazingly beautiful pandemic home births.
So again, that's wonderful, and congratulations. I'm sure that must have felt like a really great accomplishment in spite of our circumstances. So blessings to you for bringing in new life.
Thank you. Or just for catching new life. I mean, the mother.
Yes, right. Well, assisting with that process, right? Because that's what you essentially serve as the assistant to the mothers, which is so lovely. And so I know I opened up the segment discussing the Black maternal health disparities. And so if we could just close with that so that people understand why you've chosen to become a midwife in your career.
Yes. So I have 5 children of my own. I had my first 2 in hospital setting, and then went on to have 3 amazing home births, which really changed my whole perspective on birth. I started out as a childbirth educator, then a birth doula, postpartum doula, lactation consultant. And as I realized the needs of the community, I felt that midwifery was definitely calling me. That is what prompted me to start Birth from the Earth back in 2008. Turned it into a nonprofit last year so that I could write grants to close the gaps and disparities. So what we hear overall from Black women is that they're not being listened to. They don't seem to be getting the same quality of care. And it's not because being Black makes you higher risk. It's the way in which our system perceives and treats Black. And, you know, we could go way back into history and explain our history here and how we've got to this point. It's not a big jump. And I wanted to be able to be an active part of the solution, because as we watch these numbers rise and the maternal mortality rate go down overall, but continue to rise for Black women, I realized that we need to have more readily available access to resources and information. We need to have more providers that look like us. And we need to have midwifery care be more prevalent, especially when a pregnancy is low risk. So that was the reason that I got steeped in this work, but also because I love being with families and watching them come into their power. To that end, some of the programs that we have in place through Birth from the Earth are, we train birth workers. So we train birth and postpartum doulas. We train childbirth educators and home birth midwifery assistants. And we also have a access to home birth scholarship, because I know you asked the question about the insurance and how does that cover or not cover. So doulas, because they're not medical providers, are typically not covered by insurance. Midwives in hospital are fully covered by insurance, but for home birth as out-of-network providers, they are not. So sometimes the barrier is financial. And with this access to home birth scholarship, if the insurance is not covering everything, a family can apply for access to home birth scholarship. Those funds get paid directly to the midwife on their behalf so that they can still have a home birth with qualified providers.
That's lovely. Oh my gosh, that sounds so wonderful. It's a wonderful opportunity. I hope whomever's listening will take advantage of these services that are being offered, because as I mentioned earlier in opening the segment, when I was pregnant, I felt as if though having a midwife was a luxury. So I just want to acknowledge you for making it accessible to our people and the people of our community. Yeah.
For sure.
So, and thank you for being here with us.
Really, thank you.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say thank you for being here with us and sharing it with our viewers. And I just want to let our viewers know that if you're interested in any childbirth education and birth and postpartum care, you can visit birthfromtheearth.vpweb.com. Right, we have to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll find out how some artists have been coping through COVID-19. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Open. So in the beginning of this pandemic, everyone was forced to deal with the sudden changes that included quarantine. We're still in quarantine. Many people meditated and participated in yoga, and many artists rely on their craft to provide solace. So our next guest decided to create a zine that showcases the pandemic through the artist's eye. And joining us to tell us more, we welcome the curator of With Space Between Us, Kasey-Lynn Kasinator Rodriguez. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being with us. I wanted to open up with your uh, status, right? And your status being that a new mom,
Hmm.
and the fact that you are recently a new mom, and what the impact of these conditions has had on your new circumstances, right? Because you still have an infant, right? You have an infant.
Yeah,
How old are you now?
he's 11 months.
Oh, so okay, so he's 11
Yeah,
months.
so
But when
he's just
first,
hitting a year. Yeah.
so when this first hit, what was that like for you?
Well, he was about 5 months, going on 6 months, so he wasn't. I mean, he obviously has no idea what was going on, so it was very hard to now transition into. Does he go outside? Do we stay inside? If I need to go somewhere, what happens? So it was a lot of uncertainty going on, and a lot of things that were just up in the air. It was very scary in the beginning of not really knowing what was going on or what really to do. So it was very difficult. It was like everything was kind of going back into a routine before then. And then all of a sudden when the pandemic hit, then it was kind of like everything got shut down and everything at home is totally different. You know what I mean? So it was really hard dealing with a brand new baby during that time.
Well, yeah, I would imagine so, schedule wise. And then on top of that, I don't know if you suffered severely from postpartum, but that
Yeah.
is part of the whole post pregnancy
Hmm.
aspect, and so having to deal with this surreal, unrealistic circumstance, and then bringing new life into the world, and having to deal with your body changing simultaneously. That's a lot, and so I'm assuming you found solace in the work that you do.
Yeah, I definitely did. Honestly, postpartum was really hurting me during this time. It was something that I didn't imagine would happen along with the pandemic. So it was kind of like extra, just getting piled on and piled on. So it was like very overwhelming and a lot kind of happening at one time. So making the open call after in order to kind of go out a little bit, I was bringing my camera along, strapping the baby on me, kind of thing, protecting us both. And then I was just kind of like taking pictures. So after that, I wanted to see if other people were kind of in the art mindset during this time. So I put out an open call, just hoping that even a few friends or people that I knew would like submit, and it turned into something really big, which is really cool.
Right. Well, definitely, you're capitalizing this particular time period, and
Hmm.
so I noticed that we have an image of you with the baby, and you're both wearing
Hmm.
masks. So, if you're the photographer, how was that photo captured?
Oh, well, I art directed it in that sense. But I had one of my friends take the photos of us outside, with distance, of course, you know. But it was in the very beginning, so that was probably the end of March, early April. So I was bringing the baby out in a mask. It was a little big for him and things like that, but I had him in the carrier on me all the time.
Hmm.
So I felt like he'd be a little bit more protected than me having him kind of facing outward into the public and things like that. So when I was starting to do that, I was like, I don't have a picture of myself and kind of what's going on. So I art directed my friend to do that.
Right. So,
But
that's a part of your own history that you're
yeah.
creating. Absolutely,
Hmm.
totally makes sense. And so
Yeah.
you had been right that you put you did an outreach, right? You put out an open call online, and
Yeah.
now what you've created is pretty much global, because we're all dealing with this in the same way, rather in different places, but we're all going through it together.
Yeah, definitely. So, what I kind of did was, in order, I mean, I didn't even think that this would happen, but I put it out on Instagram. So I sponsored the post. And Instagram, when you do that, kind of asks you like, where do you where do you see your target audience? And my target audience was throughout the United States. I didn't even think that it would be seen uh, globally the way that it was. So we have people from Austria and Turkey and the UK. So there's a bunch of different people who are also dealing with the same exact thing, and their lockdown was a little bit harsher than ours too, where nobody could really go out. and a bunch of other things that were going on. So it was kind of like, wow, like there's totally different spectrums going on with our stay-at-home orders or our quarantines and stuff like that. So it was really cool to get people, when I asked them like, where are you from, they were telling me, well, I'm from Europe, or I'm over here, and things like that. So it was cool to have them reach out with work.
So walk us through some of the images that we have and what compelled you to curate in the manner that you did.
Well, this is my first time curating something. I normally make my own zines with my own work. So me kind of putting that out there, I didn't know if I wanted to put it out digitally because it would be kind of hard. I didn't know also if printing presses would be open or anything in that sense. So the idea to make it into a physical book kind of came later, where I just wanted to collect these stories. And then when people would ask me like, oh, when's the deadline? I was like, well, COVID is still kind of happening, so there's really no deadline right now. So I had people even submitting up until like June and things like that, which really worked out well. So curating this, I had friends reach out to me also. So there's a lot of Bronx and local artists. I also had like friends of friends. So if someone wasn't submitting, they told someone else and they submitted. So it was a lot of word of mouth, which was really good.
So how many are featured altogether?
Yeah, 35 artists are featured. And I think that,
nice.
Well, 34, including myself. So there's, when it just started growing, I just kind of like let it turn into what it was, which is cool.
And I understand that the youngest contributor is your brother?
Yes. Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up now. So my brother is 12. His name is Angel, and he wrote a poem for school. And the first time I read the poem, I like wept, like tears were streaming, because for him to have gone from, I literally picked him up on the last day of his school, and then they said school is closing. Like, the fact that he didn't say bye to friends, it was very, it's like a very traumatic time for all of us. And the fact that he expressed himself in this way was something that I was like, wow. After I read it, I said, do you want to submit to my zine? And he was like, oh, okay. Like, not even realizing how big this would be either. And
especially
that's how he,
generation, they're absorbing it in a different manner. I mean, we as adults, we process differently. So that's lovely that you were able to provide him with an outlet, and not only provide him with an outlet, it be documented, because this is going to be, it's going to hold historical value, what you created.
Yeah.
Really,
and that's something that I think having it in this time and having it during this time period exactly is like super important, because these are all the feelings, the thoughts, the ideas of a bunch of different people during this one time, that it's not like one person's just dealing with it. It was all of us. So manifesting this into a physical thing, which, you know, COVID has turned into a physical thing itself, I think resonates together, of having it an actual zine, as opposed to just kind of letting it sit there, or, you know, do what it may kind of thing.
you have it in your hand. Can I see it?
Yeah, I have it right here.
Beautiful. All right. So before we go, because I know that you are also passing this forward. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands that while you created this physical zine and it is for sale, that the idea is that you continue to move the energy forward and extend it to certain organizations. Can you just share the details of where the funds are going?
Yes. So the book is $25. You order it through Blurb, and where it would go is to, I'm trying to split the funds between the Black Artist Fund, which helps Black and Brown art students specifically continue their ongoing projects. And then the other would be to a COVID relief fund. I haven't figured out which one exactly yet, but I want to give back to one that helps, especially in the Bronx, at least, for a lot of people like myself and others who were affected by the coronavirus.
Beautiful. Thank you. And thank you for being so conscious in your efforts to just really send out healing energy, because that's what we're doing. We're all healing together. Thank you for being with us, Kasey.
Thank you.
Kasinator Rodriguez. And you guys, once again, for with space between us, the zine that is. It's available for purchase on blurb.com. And once again, all the proceeds are going to be donated to a COVID relief fund and the Black Artists Fund. All right, we have to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll hear the latest on the Salsa Project. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. So the Salsa Project is a platform preserving the culture and rich history of salsa for generations to come. It covers a docuseries, community engagement, and events for all to engage and learn about the essence of salsa. Joining us to discuss his recent trip to Puerto Rico along with his new merchandise and collaboration with the Bronx Brewery, we welcome Salsa Project founder, Brandon Espinosa. Hello.
Hola, Rhina. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here with us on this rainy day, right? But the sun will come through on the days to follow, of course, after the rainbow. After the rainbow, I'm just being kind of poetic at this moment because it's just been really challenging for us all. And I would imagine it's been challenging for you, considering that the primary thing you do is coordinate events.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's it's one of those things that you could either look at the glass half full or half empty. And we've looked at it as half full and kind of have used this time to try to continue to push our creative juices, innovate and pivot so that we can continue the momentum that we had prior to the pandemic and keep our fans and our audience engaged.
Well, I want to congratulate you on creating this docuseries. Let's talk a little bit about that. Like, when did that happen? Obviously, this was pre-pandemic, and so now you have something to at least share with people visually. And I understand you have some pretty big names in this docuseries.
So yeah, we had the fortunate opportunity to throw our first event outside of New York City in March of this year in the beautiful island of Puerto Rico. And we went all over the island and immersed ourselves in different cultural experiences and had the opportunity to interview some really big names in salsa, to name a few, Eddie Palmieri, Michael Stewart, and engage with others such as Lalo Rodriguez, Rey de la Paz, and others. So this documentary that we recently released and worked on goes behind the scenes with me. So it's very much of a Q&A of me sharing kind of that experience with vignettes into the different experiences that we had on the island and speaking with people who are keeping the culture alive in their respective forms. So for the most part, the documentary ended up being more of a Q&A with these different windows into the island.
That's awesome. And so I find it so fascinating how you've been able to sustain the culture and passing it on to the next generation in such innovative ways, right? You were out in Puerto Rico. I understand that you also had your own event while you were out there. You got to meet all these really legendary salseros and or contributors to this culture. I also understand that you went to the Bacoa restaurant, right? And you also met with them. And I also understand that you visited with Ricardo Padilla, who has his own Museo de la Salsa. So what stands out for you the most in this experience?
So I would definitely have to say our event in La Factoria. Leaving New York City to throw an event on the island where salsa is so prominent at one of the top 50 cocktail bars in the world was truly a memorable experience. Within 25 minutes of opening the doors, our event was completely sold out. And we had Boogaloo Pete We had a DJ here from New York City who's a friend of the brand named DJ J Boogie. And then we had a live performance from Tempo Alomar, who used to play with Roberto Roena, and a guest appearance from Geraldito Rivas, formerly part of NG2, and the son of Jerry Rivas del Gran Combo. So that would definitely be the highlight for us. It was so many people from all over the world because it coincided with Dia Nacional de la Salsa at Hiram B. Thorne in Santurce, which is a Coachella for salseros, if you will. $20 and you see the best bands in Puerto Rico. So we had that fortunate opportunity to coincide our event with that weekend. So there were people from Colombia, obviously Puerto Rico, there was people from Dominican Republic, there was people from Peru, all coming together around the sound of music and celebrating our beloved salsa.
That's lovely, and you got it all on camera. So how long is the documentary?
It's about 40 minutes, and the documentary, again, when we got back from the trip, we did a Q&A, because the idea was to kind of learn more about me and my perspective on the music and why we do this and kind of what were some of those experiences when traveling to the island. And then we have on the documentary an interview with Carlo Navarre, who's up and coming salsero, who recently released his newest album, as well as the team over at Bacoa that's using food and their space as a way to preserve culture.
And so now that you're back in New York, and now that you have this documentary already done, and since you've been placed on pause, right? Because you usually hold events and you teach people how to dance salsa and you educate people about salsa. I mean, that's what this project is driven on. How have you been sustaining yourself? I know you have merchandise, and I believe you have a collaboration going on with the Bronx Brewery.
Yeah, so merchandise and events is how we generate our revenue to continue our mission of protecting, preserving, and ensuring that salsa doesn't die amongst the younger generations. With that being said, we recently released pre-orders for our newest merchandise collection, which you could find on our website, thesalsaprojectnyc.com. And it was inspired by vintage concerts and a tribute to some of the icons. So we have a tee dedicated to Hector Lavoe. We have a tee called Las Reinas, which is a tribute to Celia, La Lupe, and La India. We also have a tribute to Los Soneros, Gilberto Santa Rosa, and Imael Rivera. And then we also have a tee dedicated to my favorite band, La Institución de la Salsa El Gran Combo de Puerto Rico. And then we also released our first ever bucket hat, and we have socks that are coming out as well. So
Medias.
Medias. So you can never go wrong with the necessities, right?
Right, because the Latinos, they wear the medias con chanclas.
So true, so true. So, the money we generate there will continue to be reinvested into new projects that we want to work on. And then coming out on Saturday, August 15th, we're really excited because we had the opportunity to partner with the Bronx Brewery to create a beer that's going to be called El Condado de la Salsa. And it was the first time that I had an opportunity to inspire and build my own recipe with our production team here at the Bronx Brewery. So it's been pretty incredible. And my wife had the opportunity to illustrate the label. So many different anecdotes and pieces that speak to our beloved salsa in the Bronx.
Wow, thank you. Awesome, Brandon. You got a family business going on there. Got wifey illustrating too. That is so what's up.
Hey, gotta keep it in the family.
Claro. And then you got the little one. How old is the little one now?
2.5.
Yeah, the last time we had him on, it was a newborn that we had to get out.
She was months. She was months, and it's crazy how quickly they grow. She loves salsa. When the music comes on, she starts dancing. She plays the clave on beat, which is it just warms my heart. And
that's impressive. At 2 years old. Oh gosh. Well, it's wonderful. Thank you for all that you do and for continuing to preserve our cultura, and most importantly, for passing it forward. And blessings to you, your family, your business, and everyone. Stay healthy. Y gracias por, for making sure that we document el condado de la salsa.
Well, thank you for having me, Rhina. Thanks to the BronxNet team. Y que viva la salsa.
Que viva. All right, you guys, for more on the Salsa Project, please visit the Salsa Project, NYC.com. And speaking of salsa, in collaboration with the Bronx Borough President and the Bronx Tourism Council, BronxNet will be celebrating the Bronx Salsa Fest all month long, showcasing best of the Bronx Summer Concert Series and more on Optimum Channel 67 and Files 2133 until August 30th. For more on the lineup, please visit bronxnet.tv. Okay, don't go anywhere. Bobby C's Weekly Sports Roundup is coming up next.
We begin our look at sports out at the Big Ball Park in the Bronx on a night when Didi and Girardi return to Yankee Stadium in the opposing dugout. It's Garrett Cole with his first win in the BX and another huge night from the Yankee bats. Lights out. This one had it all, including a rain delay. Final score, Bombers 6, Philadelphia 3. Here's the Yankees ace, who remains perfect on the season.
It was special to put on the uniform. It was special to warm up in that bullpen, and it was special to take the field from that side of the field. As far as the fans go, like, we're kind of getting used to that at this point. Obviously, when you pre-coronavirus, when you dream, you don't dream about pitching in a stadium without any fans. So, but I guess we're kind of getting used to it at that point. So I just try to savor the things that I enjoyed. And hopefully we'll have fans, hopefully sooner rather than later, but if not, at some point.
Aaron Judge stayed hot at the plate. He didn't homer in his sixth straight, but he didn't have to either. Long balls from DJ LeMahieu, Brett Gardner, and Gio Urshela were more than enough. Here's the Judge on his hot streak.
Our offense is feeding off of each other. Our bullpen's doing their job. We're just having fun out there. I think a lot of us are just glad to be having some baseball and to be back out on the field. So, yeah, like you said, it was a tough grind out game tonight against the Red Sox, like it usually is. But, some guys came up with some clutch hits, and we were able to come out with a win.
Great winning at bats there. Talkman to get on base with the walk and steal second, and then DJ doing DJ, and then Judge, you got a pitch ahead in the count and finished it off. But and a good job by the pen coming in and, hold them down enough. I thought King was good. Just a lot of good things that happened tonight and people contributing to a big win.
Gio has been almost as hot as Judge. Here's more with Gio.
The confidence is still there. That's what I'm trying to do every day that I come to the ballpark. Every time I wake up, keep that confidence in my mind.
For Gardy, he came in scuffling at the plate, but connected for only his third opposite field home run of his career, and that includes one inside the park job. A former pinstripe teammate even had some fun with that one on Twitter.
I obviously don't have social media, so a lot of things, go unnoticed by me. But somebody made me aware of, Phil tweeting about me hitting Oppo homers. So I just texted him and gave him a hard time, and I just asked him where he was at. He's at the house watching on TV. So, but yeah, he was asking me, how it is playing in front of no fans and a few other things. But yeah, one of my guys from going all the way back to 2005 and 2006. So all in good fun.
Yankees have the best record in baseball. Across town, the Mets have an ace of their own. Instead of him extending a winning streak, Jacob deGrom helped the Mets end a losing streak to kickstart the week. Finally able to hit with runners in scoring position, the Mets went 5 for 13 in those situations Monday night to back the two-time Cy Young winner and a 7-2 road win over Atlanta. deGrom struck out 10 over 6 innings in a quality start, allowing the Mets to avoid a 4-game sweep to the Braves. Only regret, a Travis d'Arnaud solo homer, marking the first home run the righty has allowed since a Wilmer Flores solo shot all the way back in September 2019. Here's deGrom on his game plan moving forward.
I guess I should stop facing my old teammates. I think what helped is throwing the ball down the middle. I made a couple mistakes to him. The slider was up, fastball was pretty much right down the middle. So, Darno's seen me a lot, so he probably had a pretty good idea of how I want to pitch, but it makes it a little bit easier when you make some mistakes over the middle of the plate.
Our goal each day is to go get the W. We've been really good about, everything else, every other adversity that's around the game to make sure that we behave the right way. But we're going one game at a time. Even though you mentioned last Tuesday, and we know in the back of our head what's going on. We had the 5-game losing streak, but we get ready for every game. As soon as we got the last out of that game, we, celebrated a little bit, but now we're packing our bags, we're getting on the plane, we're going to Washington, and our focus is playing against the National tomorrow over there.
The Mets will need a lot more like that from deGrom after star Yoenis Cespedes opts out of the season due to COVID-19. We shift gears over to the association, where the Brooklyn Nets have played pretty well in the NBA coronavirus bubble in Orlando, Florida. That includes a victory over Washington and some promising play against Milwaukee. The Nets also have taken the time to focus their attention to some important messages outside of basketball. Take a look.
Seeing what I've seen, understanding the country we live in, this situation is different.
Real change needs to come. For change to happen, more conversations, more action needs to be taken.
We can influence people and create a level of education and understanding.
Black Lives Matter, it's not a fleeting moment. This is something that is here to stay.
Meantime, New York Liberty coach Walt Hopkins doesn't mince words about rookie guard Sabrina Ionescu's ankle injury. In the Liberty's game last Friday against the Atlanta Dream, Ionescu rolled her left ankle. The injury is a grade 3 sprain and might put the rest of her first season in the WNBA in jeopardy, especially a shortened season, 22 games because of the pandemic. We go inside the locker room for more.
Yeah, we're going to have to huddle up and talk about it. There's not a lot of ready-to-go options hanging around, so we're gonna have to huddle up and see if we can get Kia right, and hopefully it's not serious with Sabrina.
The number 1 pick put on an absolute show in her second professional game, dropping 33 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists. She's only 22 years old and was a close friend of Kobe Bryant. Ironically, Kobe's first 30-piece, also notched at 22, included identical stat line numbers of 33 points, 7 boards, and 7 dimes. Perhaps Kobe is shining down on his former team too. After 7 straight seasons of not making the playoffs, the LA Lakers clinched the number 1 seed in the Western Conference in Monday's 116-108 win over the Utah Jazz. It's something the franchise hasn't done since 2010, when Bryant led the Lakers to his 5th and final championship. The NBA, NHL, and MLB are in full swing, albeit with some adjustments. The National Football League is gearing up for its return too. The New York Giants got back to work officially this week.
Well, the first thing we have to all understand is everyone at this level has sacrificed to get here. We're going to have to make some more sacrifice, whether that's, socially away from the game, whether it's how we interact with, friends and family members throughout this season. But we have to make the right decisions. And the biggest thing is everybody has to understand that all of our decisions directly impact each other. It's not fair for me to go out and do something and put myself at risk and come in here and get a player sick. It's not my right. I'm not entitled to do that. So we've got to all make the right decisions, both in the building, following the protocols, and away from the building. And I think ultimately as a league, we just have to trust the plan in place the league's put. Make sure we adhere to the protocols. Make sure we wear the PPEs. Let's be careful. Let's be cautious. Okay, but we can operate aggressively if we just follow the plan in place.
Those are the headlines. We hit the C-list for some sad news for race fans. The Indy 500 wasn't going to be the same this year. Honestly, nothing is really the same this year. As you can even see from my report at Yankee Stadium, that goes for reporters and fans alike, or in this case, lack thereof. The 500 was going to try to have some fans. That changed Tuesday. Roger Penske has reversed course and decided not to allow fans at the 104th running of the greatest spectacle in racing later this month. It will be the first without spectators, who showed up at Indianapolis Motor Speedway every year, even during the Great Depression. Penske purchased the iconic speedway in January and has spent every day since upgrading it. The pandemic forced the race to change dates for the first time from Memorial Day weekend to August 23rd. Penske initially said he wouldn't run the 500 without fans, but as the pandemic continued to spread across the nation, the decision was made to limit capacity to 50%. The speedway then lowered that number to 25%. Cases have continued to rise steadily in Indiana, and Penske says his reversal on the spectator policy is the toughest business decision I've ever made in my life. This is real, folks. We are lucky to have sports in some shape and form, and more importantly, we are lucky to have health. Please wear your masks, social distance, and do your best to limit gatherings so we can meet at places like Yankee Stadium and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway again sometime soon. Stay safe, stay healthy. That's your sports. I'm Bobby C. Keep it locked. More open after this.
Welcome back. Our last guest is a creative nonfiction mixed genre writer and poet from New York City. She's a 2019 Brio Award-winning poet, and her work has been featured in several anthologies, including the Breakbeat Poets, Latinx Volume 4, and she's currently working on her first book while also launching her new digital series. Everyone, please welcome Sydney Valerio. Hola.
Hola. How are you? I am well. I am well. Steamy, but you know, it's summer.
Yeah, exactly. We're not going to complain about the heat nowadays, right? And so I do want to acknowledge your background. I love your background. It's very apropos for the segment.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for being with us. And you know, I was in awe just learning about you and just your style and really what you stand for. I wanted to reference, even though I know you're going to be performing for us later, but I did want to reference the poem about the chicle, right? Because there's so much symbolism and significance in like cultural just identity within a piece of gum in your writing. So let's talk a little bit about your journey and why you are I think you're a stand for our community in being a voice, an authentic voice of what you represent.
Yes, I actually, as a writer, really try to center myself in documenting our voices and experiences. And I came to that sense and notion as a writer because I'm an academic as well. And I've navigated many academic sceneries, including being a professor at Fordham for a decade. And what I found was that there's a lot of talk about our community in the ivory tower, but there's a lack of authentic voices coming from our community telling our stories. So that's what really motivated me to really go into being a creative writer that focuses on capturing what I'm witnessing and what I'm experiencing as someone of this community, this Bronx beautiful community.
And so I want to make sure that everybody gets what we're talking about, right? Because when you're in that world of whatever, the literary world, the performance world, there's this sense of adjusting and acclimating to please and or to be related to, right? And where what I got from your work is that you are inviting people to relate to us versus us finding a way to make it relatable for them. And I say us and them because, you know, I'm a Latina as well. So, and an urban Latina at that.
Well, yes, I think what you're referencing is, you know, living within that white gaze that we grew up in here in the United States. And so Puños y Trompones, which is the poem that you're referencing, came from, you know, I'm not always a fist full of these chicles that my family brought me from DR that I realized represented the stretch we're always expected to make. So if you want to know my essence, come to me. I'm not going to stretch anymore.
Stretch. And it's very symbolic of our times right now, because right now everybody's being asked and forced, for lack of a better word, to stretch.
Yes, and I'm really centering myself and my work in stillness these days, and just being present and just being within my community.
And so what does that look like for you? Because I find that we're all pivoting, and we're all pivoting from an internal place. And that internal place obviously loans itself to rediscovering oneself and our identities. And yes, we can go back into the history, and or we can recreate from our history. So where do you find yourself in this equation?
So what's interesting is that I'm a local of New York City, but I serve a suburban school district as my 9 to 5. And as a local of New York City, I found myself in writing circles that were full of other people who had full-time jobs but wanted to write their stories. So that's where I find myself these days, even before the MFA, and currently now as I'm getting ready to launch this digital archive series, I'm finding myself within my community and being a local in my Bronx community.
And so what do we have to look forward to in this digital archive?
So it's a very organic experience. I do have a background in technology from my first master's, so it really is going to look different online, but it's going to be personable. It's going to be me going out into Van Cortlandt and hosting recorded series of just documenting people's stories about what is New York City and what has their experience been since they were kids.
Interesting. And what about this particular time period?
This time period, more than ever, we saw many people leave. And there are those of us who stay, not just because we love this place, but because this is home. So I love the fact that everything is conspiring to make sure that the people that I'm recording are actually here because they are from here.
And so when do you foresee this being released?
So I'm unrolling it as early as next week. I will start launching in a very organic way through community circles, flyers, and invitations for people to join me for these free workshops and sessions.
So do you have a launch date? You said next week, we're in August, but I'm just curious, have you set the launch date? Because I know we kind of like wiggle a little bit when it's digital.
Thursday next week, yes. Next week, Thursday would be August 12th. Or 13th, something like that.
August 13th.
August 13th. And as you can see, it really is about just letting it go when it needs to. I really believe in trusting the timing of when spirit says to let it go.
That's pretty much where we are, period, right? So it's a wonderful thing to surrender. So before we go, I know you're going to perform for us, and I just wanted to give a little background on what you're going to be performing for us. I know the title is Castañuelas, right?
Yes.
And I also understand that it's published by Harvard University's literary journal, Palabritas. Oh, there's the book.
Yes, it is. So I love the fact that I'm sharing this with you. Castañuelas is the campo that my family is from, which is also the same place Cardi B's family is from. So it's a pretty interesting story there.
That's what's up. All right. Well, thanks for giving us a little background. You guys, you got to stay tuned because we're going to take a quick break. And then when we return, it's Sydney Valerio. She's going to perform Castañuelas when we return. Don't go anywhere. now time for this week's Open Artist Spotlight. Here now to recite her poem, Castañuelas. Please welcome Sydney Valerio.
Castañuelas. When I set foot in Castañuelas, its people don't use a facial recognition tool to note the grace of Mama Anta on my face. There, everyone greets me with an I see you nod, declare me as family of the Campos elders, and I reply, sí. Soy sobrina de Rosa y Lili, and I've belonged to this Campos since the days my 2-year-old bare bow-legged feet would run through Mama Anta's patio, its guanábanas slipping out of my hands as I ate them by the 2s and 3s. And I've belonged to this Campos since the days a local bachatero started claiming in his songs, voy pa' allá, voy a buscar la mujer que me domina. And in his songs, I learned about the power of my parcela. I've belonged to Castañuelas since the days I couldn't control myself from eating tamarindo quimalitos made from agua de canal, giving me the ultimate churria for days. You wanted to try all the flavors, my sister would say. El Campo is where this Bronx kid would spend summers, where food was accessible anywhere and everywhere, where the moment you entered someone's home, they'd brindarte un cafecito, where you'd hear the radio host broadcast son las 12 del día, marking a sacred time of sitting with family, of businesses closing from noon to 3 so that people could come together and eat. El Campo is where hunger for time with family was seen on this New York City kid's skin upon coming off the plane. Some say it was falta de sol, but in reality, it was lack of time with family, you know, falta de calor. Back then, I wouldn't know it yet, how the Bronx would become full of food deserts, making everyone want to desert it. How the Bronx and El Campo were deemed as ghetto so that staying and investing in them would seem worthless. El Campo is where my elders live today, where during a recent visit, Tío Pupa told me, mira lo que blanco, seco y desabrío están saliendo, as we grabbed the plátanos to peel, boil, and eat with milk. And of the 6 plátanos, 3 got placed in the trash. Look at them. They are not even good enough to feed to the chickens. He then turned to me and said how I've also planted a United States education in me and how the mind can become a vacant wasteland when its seeds become privileges focused on greed. Ten cuidado, mi hija, he said. No te vuelvas tan desabría, he said. Don't become so bland que no sirves ni para dársela a las gallinas.
Woo! Sydney Valerio, everyone. Yeah, I felt that. Oh my goodness. And you guys, for more on Sydney Valerio and her digital series being released August 13th, be sure to visit SydneyValerio.com, and you can also follow her on Instagram at Sydney right here. All right, that is our show today, mi gente. Thanks to all our guests for coming through and to you, our viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of the show, you can check out the recablecast tonight and 24 hours a day at BronxNet.tv. I'm Rhina Valentin, and from all of us here at Open, may the universe provide paz, prosperity, y amor. All right, mi gente, don't forget, wear your mask.